I just got back from watching Cold Storage, a new horror comedy starring Liam Neeson, Joe Keery, and Georgina Campbell. Now, I didn't really have any expectations for this film because I didn't really know anything about it. I don't think I had even seen a trailer for it. All I knew was that it was being written by David Cope, which did get me interested because he has written some films that I am very fond of. But he's also written some films I'm not very fond of, so I didn't know for sure if this would be something I'd enjoy or if it'd be something I didn't really like. The only other thing I knew about it was that it was starring Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. So, maybe in actuality, this movie is Season 5, Episode 9. Maybe Conformity 8 is real. Spoiler alert, it's not. Keep on dreaming, guys. But, yeah, that's all I knew about it. Apparently, it is based off a book, also written by David Cope. I haven't read the book, and I don't know anything about it. So, I'm not going to be looking at this as an adaptation. I'm just going to be looking at this as a movie. And so, as a movie, it's not bad. I quite enjoyed it. I'm not big on zombie movies or zombie-adjacent movies. They've never really been my cup of tea, and I've only really seen like a select few of them. But I didn't mind this one. It was good to see Joe Keery again. I was really interested to see what he'd do after Stranger Things, and he did pretty good in this. I actually really enjoyed his performance. He changed up his acting a bit, so that way it doesn't feel like he's just playing Steve again, which, personally, I preferred because it helped me feel like these were actually two different characters instead of both being the same character. And overall, everyone did a pretty good job with their acting. I think they all played their parts really well. There were a couple of characters that had some questionable acting, but overall, a pretty solid job from everyone. This movie reminded me a lot of The Last of Us, specifically the TV show starring Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. Like the fungus, or the virus, or whatever, in the film, that was almost exactly the same as the virus in the show, The Last of Us. It acted almost exactly the same, it looks almost exactly the same, like it felt like something I'd see from that show. And even the opening of the film, the opening credits, those just looked like a cheaper knockoff of The Last of Us. So the best way to describe this film is it's The Last of Us, except it's a comedy and it stars Steve Harrington. So if that's something you're interested in, first of all, it's a really random thing to be interested in. Second of all, you would love this movie. I thought the story was pretty good. It's not anything crazy. It's a super simple story. Basically, the bare bones plot synopsis is these two storage center employees get trapped in their work overnight, and they have to survive and stop an outbreak of this fungus that can infect animals and people and stuff like that. And that's pretty much it. It doesn't really get more in depth than that, and it did it well. It did have the high note at the beginning, and then after the prologue, it did drop down and get pretty slow for a while. But it did pick up the pace and eventually reach that high note again, so I thought that was pretty good. It is a horror comedy, so how does it hold up in those categories? Well, for horror, pretty good. They threw in a couple of really cheap jump scares in there, and there is some pretty decent body horror with some of the zombies. But I wouldn't really say it's scary. I wouldn't even really call it spooky. If you take out the cheap jump scares, it's more of a thriller than anything. And as for the comedy, it was pretty good. I'd say overall, it was good. A lot of the jokes landed for me. There were a few, especially at the beginning, that missed. And there was some that I honestly wasn't even sure if it was supposed to be a joke or not. But overall, pretty good. I wasn't really laughing out loud. It was more of a giggle, maybe even a light chuckle, but it was still fairly funny. Obviously, it's not perfect. It's full of flaws and issues. The biggest one for me is the characters. Now I know people don't watch horror movies for well-written characters, but they were just super one-dimensional. Like, I saw this film a couple hours ago, and I couldn't tell you any of their names, even the main characters. And all I could tell you about the characters is that one went to prison once, one has a child, and one has back problems. That is literally all you know about these characters throughout the entire movie. So I wasn't a huge fan of that. It's not the end of the world. Like I said, I still enjoyed the movie. It's just that's probably the biggest issue for me. I don't know how much the budget was for this film. I haven't found anything official yet. I've seen some things say it was 150 million and another thing say it's around 20 million. I really hope it's not the 150 million because this is not an $150 million film. The 20 million does make a lot more sense, but like I said, I don't know how much for sure. It does not look bad. The cinematography is pretty good, and there was actually some shots I really loved, like some shots with like the neon sign glowing in the reflection of the rain. I thought those shots looked great. The CGI and effects, the effects I thought were pretty good. The CGI, it wasn't bad. It was totally passable. There were some shots that looked pretty good, and others that were pretty bad, and others that you could definitely tell it was CGI, but it doesn't look like bad to where it takes you out of the movie. But overall, I'd say the effects were pretty good. If I'm being honest, this does feel like more of a streaming movie, more than like a theatrically released movie, which I'm not certain how big of a theatrical release it's getting. At least for where I live, I couldn't find any theaters playing it. I had to drive like an hour out just to find somewhere that played it. And so I'm not certain how big of a release it's getting, but it just didn't really feel like something I'd go to the theaters for. I still enjoyed my experience there, but it just feels like it would do better on a streaming service rather than a theater. Especially if you have to drive like an hour to go watch it. If you have to drive an hour, just wait until it's on streaming. It'll be much easier that way. In conclusion, Cold Storage is a pretty enjoyable and fairly funny horror film. It's not going to change your life, it didn't do anything new, and it's not going to win any awards or anything like that. But if you and your friends are free on a weekend and you go watch it together, you won't regret it. So overall, I give it a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.